Gentlemen. New intro? No?
Sure.
Okay. Welcome back, Guardians, to another Dream Team video. I'm your humble host, Mason777, and I am joined here today in the Dido discussion room with Cranky Crab
Hello.
and today's guest, Scapegoat.
Hi.
So we've got a lot to
Stays.
talk about here. As I'm sure you saw from the thumbnail and the title of the video, a bit of some hot takes here. We've got. I'm gonna bullet point this here. It always is in the timestamps, but I'm just gonna go ahead and let you know what we're gonna be covering here before we cover it. I figured that might be a little bit better here. This is Yeetcast number 12, I believe, the gaming podcast where we have really kick-ass gameplay in the background where we discuss like level-headed adults about the state of the game or the state of whatever, while we're playing here. So let's get into this here. First of all, we're going to talk about the bounty grind and how generally, at least personally, I'll pick your guys' opinion here in just a second here. I'm kind of sick of it. We're going to talk about sunsetting and some opinions that we have on that as well. We're going to talk about how Umbral Engrams were quote-unquote fixed and how that has kind of ruined the experience for a lot of players, again, myself included. We're going to talk about some of the new weapons and how our general feelings are on the current sandbox right now. Bungie always says we're listening. Well, we're going to talk about what and who Bungie is listening to. Because they always say that they're listening. I don't think that they're lying to us, but let's figure out where that's coming from. And we're going to talk about an idea called power fantasy. Let's get into this. Let's start with the bounties. So, bounties have been a staple of the Destiny universe for a very long time. Way back in D1, you could only carry 5 bounties at a given time, and you had to go to the vendor in order to turn them in. Just so everybody had a little bit of context as to what it used to be like. It is far improved from the old system, but the bounty system right now is forcing this is how I feel. It's forcing me to play the game that Bungie wants me to play, rather than the game that I want to play. Bungie, of course, it's their game. They have a certain vision for it, and we have to respect that as players. We're essentially, as somebody had pointed out to me in the comment section, a good way to think about it is that you're buying a ticket to a roller coaster. Right? You don't get to design the roller coaster for the most part. You can have favorite parts and so forth. Obviously, you can scout out the roller coaster before you go on it, but you're buying passage onto that roller coaster. And the bounty system for me has kept me on certain rails that I don't like. I love the PvP in this game. I'm not a huge fan of PvE. It just doesn't necessarily mean that I dislike the people who play it or I think that it's bad. It's just not for me. I don't find it interesting, right? It's like red versus blue. I'm just not interested. But I wanted to get your guys' opinion on that. What is the bounty system? Has the bounty system been kind of a problem for you as well, or has it been a little annoying, or what do you think?
Yeah, sure. Not for myself. It hasn't been frustrating. I also don't like playing PvE. It's my less favorite activity to do. But for an example, there's, what is it? Drifter's giving you something this week. It's like your tier 1 or whatever gear. If you do his, every week he's got his little bounty thing, his little quest step. And last week that required us to play Gambit. Mm-hmm. I threw a temper tantrum for 3 days and wouldn't do it. And I think the other option was to go do, what's the activity on Mars?
Escalation Protocol?
Escalation Protocol. That was the other way to do it, is either Gambit or Escalation Protocol. Mm-hmm. I grinded Escalation Protocol. I got 8%. So I was like, fuck it, I'll try Gambit. So I went into Gambit, and I was at 58% after like 1 or 2 matches. I went, okay. And so what I did was, as much as I don't like Gambit, and let me tell you, I did not enjoy my Gambit experience.
I'm not a fan of Gambit. Mm-hmm.
You know what part of my problem is? I am competitive. And I'm not necessarily a good sport. I try to be, but I'm not. I don't like losing. I'm not good about it. Mm-hmm. And Gambit is not something I play, and unless you go in with a stacked team and a strategy and the weapons and stuff that you need, the other team just wipes you. It's not fun. Now, having said that as my complaint, I did feel like the matches went fairly quick, so I didn't feel like I had to grind too much time. Mm-hmm. I felt like I was rewarded pretty fairly, compensated pretty fairly for the time I did put into Gambit to that quest. I didn't have to play Gambit all day. I had to play 4 or 5 matches tops, maybe 3. It wasn't that bad. So I don't mind it. I don't mind honestly, the gunsmith bounties. I like those because it does give me a reason to try something else out. And I'll go through my vault and,
Okay.
what submachine gun have I not used in a while? Or sometimes I like playing with something like a bow or a scout rifle. I got this night watch on my back that I think is amazing. And we were just talking about it before we went live. If scout rifles become metal, I'm keeping this bitch in the vault. This thing is going to be amazing. But that bounty gave me a reason to go do it. And I'll tell you what else I like. I like, I don't know how anyone else feels, I like the season pass, like where I get a reward every so often.
Sure, yeah.
I like that. I like that process. I like there's materials in there. I like there's armor in there. There's an exotic engram or two. I want the stuff that's in there, and it makes me keep track, and then I go do these bounties, and I don't mind Shaq's bounties. I feel like Shaq's bounties have actually gotten better. I like when there's a melee kill one, it's like one melee kill. Or a grenade kill one, it's one grenade. Sometimes it's kind of hard to get grenade kills for me in Destiny, unless I'm like making sure I tune them up with my gun first and finish them off with my grenade. Unless I'm putting thought into it instead of just reacting and playing, I had a hard time getting 10 melee kills. It was annoying. I don't have to do that anymore. I feel like Shaq's bounty. So, to answer your question, I don't feel like the grind is too bad, but that's how I am grinding.
Well, it's good to have a difference of opinion, right? Because now we can start synthesizing ideas from this. Because you pointed out something from this that I hadn't considered, which is that some people might actually enjoy the bounty experience. I had kind of considered it that it was essentially either a neutral experience or that it was a negative experience, which obviously isn't the case. You know, people can get stuck in their ways, right? They can get narrow-minded in that regard, right? So that's a good wake-up call for me. Because I hadn't considered that. Because for me, the biggest annoyance I have is gunsmith bounties. Above everything else,
Really?
gunsmith bounties are annoying, yeah. And the reason why, like Gambit bounties, let's take that for example. I'm not a fan of Gambit, like we talked about that. There, we're gonna push that idea off later. I'll put a pin in that idea. Anyway, but I'm not a fan of Gambit. But I find, generally speaking, that the Gambit bounties are pretty straightforward. It's play this subclass and just generally play the game, which is why I think the Crucible bounties work so well. Is because if you're just playing the game as normal, right, you're gonna get those bounties done, right?
Yeah.
The thing that I don't like about the gunsmith bounties is that I have to explicitly go out of my way to get them. That irritates me because I have specific builds that I want to play. I have builds that I've been using for a while, and so on and so forth, right? I have PvE builds, I have PvP builds, whatever, and those force you to use something that's different, which personally I don't like, but I can definitely see it going the other direction, which is interesting. Talking about the season pass, and then I'm going to throw it over to Scape here. Talking about the season pass, I think that's a good way to do it. I like that just generally anything can progress it, which is what I'm going to talk about when we get to the Umbral Engram stuff. But I like the fact that basically anything you do helps move yourself along. So, for example, if I wanted to exclusively play PvP, just grind Crucible bounties and get experience that way, I could do that if I wanted to. I also kind of like in this current season that there's like landmarks, as it were, like certain weapons you actually can't get from the Umbral Engram machine until you reach that point. I think that's kind of neat. I think that's cool because it kind of gives you an incentive to keep pushing, right? But let me throw it over to Scape here. Do you have any opinions on your Scape? You're actually like what's your light level? You haven't really been playing that much, right?
No comment on that.
Well, I mean, this is good. We've got a table here of a variety of opinions, right? Both Cranky and I have been playing the game for a minute. Right, we've been getting our light level up. I have a relatively negative opinion of this. Cranky has apparently a pretty positive opinion. So this is good that you're sort of like a neutral party.
I just meant no comment on my light level because everybody's just like, you're not playing the game. So you guys started off with bounties and then went on to the season pass. I'm going to start this with the season pass because like you implied and I inferred, I don't play the game too much. And the season pass is something that I actually looked at because I do like the fact that they give you stuff to look forward to with each level up, including some exclusive things or like exotic ciphers. And most importantly, a sword that I really liked. And I know that bounties end up giving bonus XP. So along with doing just normal gameplay of completing anything like crucibles and gambits or strikes or something, if I get the bounties and do those, it's going to progress me faster, and it gives me a destination to look forward to, which is what drives me to do certain things, which normally turn me off. Like grinding normally turns me off. And some bounties like have some grind to them, some don't. Um, like Cranky had mentioned, some things just take a lot of time. Especially when you're running with like Crucible Pinnacle weapons or any other Pinnacle weapon of that sort, is how much you actually have to play the game. That just doesn't do it for me. It's just it's so much devotion just for one thing. But going back to bounties, if I wanted to give my opinion on how they could make this better, I feel like this sort of tactic on grinding just to make a little bit of like a tiny bit of progress towards something, or like getting bright dust or getting experience, I feel like it's grown to be a bit too old of a MMO gaming mechanic.
Sure.
I feel like we should probably like, and I don't know what, but I feel like maybe if they were to do something drastic but in a good way, is change a sort of bounty system to a new thing. At the very least, like you said before, you had to go back to the actual person to turn in your bounties. Well, now you just have to turn them in on like a quest hub, right?
Right.
So I understand it leaves even less reason to visit the people in the tower. But what if there was just something in your HUD, in your Ghost, where you can access the bounties on the fly, no having to go back to the tower all the time?
Right. So streamline it even further. Yeah. So if I'm reading this correctly, you're saying two things. I picked up two things from that primarily. You're saying, A, you like to be able to see, like you want to be able to see it before you leap to it, right? You want to be able to see it before you land on it, right? And that seems to be what my sentiment is as well, is that specifically regarding the season pass, the fact that I know what I'm getting in, right? Or getting out, I should say, from what I'm putting in, it feels good, right?
Yeah. It's a long-term goal that sets you that gives you desire to play, because otherwise you get on this game like I have been for a while, getting on to play Crucible with you guys, and that was it. That was the game for me, and I didn't see any other interest in playing other things,
Right.
or doing my bounties or light grinding or anything,
Right.
since Crucible didn't require it.
Okay, interesting. We've got some interesting ideas. Cranky, do you have anything you want to throw in there before we move on?
No, I guess I just briefly thought that we were talking about streamlining it and not going to the tower and doing stuff. I think that that's part of that is part of the game. That's part of the content, and I think I understand, and I don't have a problem with why Bungie makes you do that. They've built these impressive landscapes, and they want you to experience it. And they want you to enjoy it, and they need to give you reasons to do stuff, right? I mean, I feel like even going back to D1 as a community, we were talking about how we needed reasons to go do activities. I think they're trying to give us reasons to go do activities. When I've got to do, if I want to, and I kind of enjoy that again. Maybe I'm the only one, but I enjoy it when one of the things I have to do to get like a powerful reward for the week or whatever kind of tier 1 drop it or whatever, I've got to go do like a flashpoint. Right. Well, I don't really care to go see Io. Like I've been there plenty of times. But sometimes like I'll drop into the Dreaming City. I had some bounties this week for the Dreaming City, and I went, this was a really impressive space, and I don't mind going back. And you know what I do? I take some weapons that I want to experiment with, and I've always said this, PvE serves as a shooting gallery for me. It's just practice. It's just target practice. So I take some cool weapons that I can't really viably use in Crucible, and I use it a little bit in PvE, and I realize, if this gets buffed, it's going to be good. Or it was fun just to experience shooting targets this way with something different for a change. I don't mind it, and I think that Bungie is trying to give us reasons to do stuff, and they're trying to give us reasons to visit what they've created. You know what I mean? To actually put it to some use. I don't know. That's my perspective on it.
Okay. I agree with that. Like with it, the matter of a game actually mixing in story with gameplay, how they intertwine. I totally get that. When going into Destiny 2, however, I already knew like tower gets destroyed, guardians are flung across the galaxy, that sort of thing. And I thought that this was going to be a whole different path for how they were going to make the sort of MMO
Oh, I
hub world
see.
mechanics. And I thought, okay, this means like maybe you have to access certain things different ways. Like going back to what I was talking about, like having a hub and that kind of thing. Like I understand people like the tower as a concept, and I understand that as a good way of mixing in gameplay with story. But if it doesn't work, then what could be an option is finding another enjoyable way or more enjoyable way of doing such things. And I thought that was where they were going with Destiny 2, especially like the story of having to go around the galaxy, getting back the Guardians, getting their like
Yeah, you thought that was going to be
determination
more of a
back up.
thing.
And then after you complete the story, it's back to the same old tower.
Yeah, it's
Guardians
the
lose
same
all their
old
stuff.
bounties.
Just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got to move on here. We've got a lot of topics to discuss here. Let's talk about sunsetting. This is a subject that we have talked about a lot in depth. It's got us our most popular video. But we've got a little bit more information on sunsetting as we are kind of in the midst of it now. We are now waist deep in sunsetting, right? We're now able to see what's happening. We're able to get a better idea of what's going on. And my complaint that I'm leveling at Destiny here, and I want to see what you guys can if you guys can rebuttal this, or you have a different idea, whatever. I hate that I can get a full auto kill clip lonesome that has the little season of arrival symbol. And I also have a full auto kill clip lonesome with the whatever symbol, like the older symbol.
Previous season.
The exact same roll, down to the masterwork, down to the barrel perks, whatever. And Bungie tells me, yeah, that older lonesome that you have X amount of kills on, you can't use it anymore. But you can use this lonesome, even though it's literally the exact same weapon. Mechanically, the exact same weapon.
Yeah, that's weird. I thought they were doing the sun setting because they were trying to move stuff out, but they're carrying some stuff over you. But what?
Right.
You can't level up your old one?
Right, which is frustrating to me, which is kind of what I was talking about for what we're going to be. This is my overall point I want to get across. Arbitrary grind. It is an arbitrary grind. There's no reason for me to hold on to this old thing outside of doing the activities. There's no reason for me to go chase the new one outside of the fact that Bungie said you have to. The fact that Bungie said you cannot power level this, you have to go get the new one, which is frustrating to me. I can't, I'm trying to be reasonable about this, but I cannot in my mind picture why that's like, they both can't say, we want to respect your time as a player. And by the way, just because we said so.
Regrind this.
Yeah. That's frustrating to me. Let's start with Cranky.
Yeah, I guess I didn't quite understand it until you laid it out like that, but that does seem silly. And I mean, I don't work in game design, so I don't know this. My first thought, I guess I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I thought, is that some kind of like technical limitation? But maybe that's naive of me. Maybe that's not.
Yeah, and
how
the
it
thing
works.
is, that's what I thought too, is like maybe there's some kind of, what's the reason behind this? But they're taking like older stuff and they're saying, yeah, like the raid stuff, we're going to retroactively, because we made a mistake, we're going to retroactively make that something you can power level later. So it's not.
Oh shit! I was almost about to get rid of my raid gear. I'm glad you
Yeah,
told
be careful
me.
about that. If I'm wrong about that, correct me in the comment section. But from what I've read in the Reddit, that's what I understand about it. So anyway, but the fact that they can do that, and the fact that I'm getting like the new stuff that we're getting that used to be old stuff, that's fine. Like that's fine. The fact that I'm seeing weapons that I've never seen in like a year, maybe 2 years, fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that I literally have 2 gnawing hungers in the vault right now, and both of them have basically the exact same role, but one of them is just got that different symbol, and now I can't play.
And if I may, the grind that you're describing is what? Just masterworking it or something? Because you didn't. If it dropped for you, you're not grinding per se.
Right, but let's take it. Let's take that for example. Good bone structure. I've got a good bone structure that won't be able to reach it into the max level of power level sunsetting. I won't be able to do it. But unless they cycled it out, I don't think they have. I can go get it from the gunsmith. Right. Let's use lonesome as an example. Let's pretend I didn't get that other lonesome. The fact that I know that it exists right now is frustrating to me, that I can go get another one with just an arbitrarily higher power cap. I can't slice it or dice it any other way. So I don't know if you guys have any opinions or thoughts on that.
So I feel like they have a good idea, but they're going about it the wrong way, because at this point all you're doing is just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. You're getting more and more different types of weapons. I mean, I'm thinking of it kind of like a gacha game. Like, imagine you have this gacha game, you get this one thing, and you're like, okay, cool. Even though I got this by luck, it's a cool thing, and I get to keep using it. And then all that does, and then all it does is just continuously add more and more things for you to get in that. And at this point in Destiny, say you have all these really cool weapons that you want to have, and then some you're using, some are other. Like me, you said you like having one of each weapon archetype in the vault.
Right.
So what happens when you have
the
really
best
good,
of each, right?
The best of everything.
Yeah, let me jump in on that. Let me jump
point,
in on that. Yeah, let me jump in on that. That's an excellent argument, and I completely understand that. So when you've got the best roll, that's the reason why they're sunsetting, right? You've got the best roll, right? There's no reason to go chasing other rolls. That's why they're doing it. There's not going to be a lightweight energy submachine gun that's able to beat Recluse. It just is not going to happen, right? Kinetic sniper rifle is just, the 72 kinetic sniper rifle is just not going to beat Revoker. It's just not going to happen, right? But here's the problem. The fact that I can get the exact same thing, right? It'd be different if it was like, oh, this is a different weapon. It has the different perks, right? I get that. Fine. Totally acceptable. Totally understand that. But the fact that I can, let's say, for example, this isn't the case, but let's say this is the case. The fact that I could go regrind the Revoker quest and get another Revoker, right? Let's just say that's the reality we live in, right? That is pointless. That is literally just adding more grind for me for no reason, right? It's grind for the sake of grind, which is frustrating.
That is where I am saying that they're going about it the wrong way.
Right.
I mean, I can totally see them sunsetting certain weapons. I still don't agree with them sunsetting armor much at all.
No, me neither.
But weapons, so I don't really have an opinion on that. Weapons, however, I can see them sunsetting weapons for the sake of introducing new weapons.
Right.
That changes things.
Right.
But they're going about it the wrong way, and releasing the same exact weapons that can have the same exact role is just their way of trying to get you to grind more, which I also see them doing, because this is the kind of game that they're trying to succeed with. They are trying to punish you with FOMO.
Right. Fear of missing out. Right. Cranky, any closing thoughts on that? We do have a couple other topics we want to try to zip through here.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just saying if you have anything else. No?
No, actually, I don't.
Okay, excellent. Good. Because I didn't want to hear from you anyway, Cranky.
I could tell.
Okay. Umbral Engrams have been quote-unquote fixed. And this is what we're talking about when I say arbitrary grind. One of the reasons we had a previous Yeetcast, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. Sorry I missed the Yeetcast, by the way. We had a Yeetcast a while ago discussing, I liked this season. Like the fact that despite it being basically the exact same season grind we had previously, I don't know what it was about this season, but I enjoyed it. And I figured out why. Umbral Engrams were all dropping above my light level. Just barely. But they all were dropping above my light level. So that means that basically anything that I did, I could take it to the Prismatic Recaster and the Drifter's Umbral trash can and dump it in, and I could get something out. Even if I don't use it, I can infuse it later. Right? They quote-unquote fixed that, where that's not a thing anymore, where you have to go through the powerful and pinnacle drops. And that killed the experience for me. In fact, I took about 3 days off from Destiny just because I was so bored. I was just so bored of having to go through Gambit and Strikes, and even Crucible to some degree, just having to just check off the list. The fact that I couldn't go into, let's just say, Strikes. I couldn't just go play Strikes, get my Umbral Engrams, and then go drop them off and get my light level stuff. Frustrates me, and I want to hear what you guys have to say about that, because it obviously is making the game easier, and obviously Bungie has a certain vision for the game that they want to play, but it's not like it was breaking anything drastically.
I'll start because my opinion is probably not as large as Cranky's. I can see this, like, I don't know the true intentions behind them doing this. I highly doubt that they're trying to do this on purpose and then ruining it for us, because once this new expansion comes out in September, Beyond Light, we're already using Dark already by afflicting our engrams with it to control what our engrams can be. I can see them going in a similar direction when Beyond Light comes out. So I doubt that they're doing this on purpose, but I would probably wait and see what could happen in September, because if they're trying to figure out new ways of using the darkness into building yourself as a character, this could be something that they'd planned to release later, having in pinnacle rewards, but something happened that changed their mind. They didn't want to quite go to that extent at this time.
Yeah, or they made a mistake in something, they pushed it out too early. I see what you're saying. That's an interesting way to take it. I didn't consider that. Like they want to use this mechanic, but not right now. Is essentially the way to boil that down, right?
If I'm looking deep into the title of Beyond Light, like light is what the Guardians are all about, what the game is all about. You're on the side of light. So if we're going beyond light, this could be a chance for Bungie to redeem themselves by taking this game's mechanics into a new light, you could say, in a new direction.
Right.
But that's just so. All my opinion is on with this whole Umbral Engram thing is, I'm just gonna wait till September, see if they actually take this further.
So you're getting your spin foil hat on. That's interesting. Okay. All right. Cranky, any thoughts?
I mean, all I really had to say was that kind of sucks.
All right.
Okay, never mind. Cranky, you could have jumped in and said, "No, wait,
No, you did
I'm gonna
great.
end this
You did
man's
great.
whole career."
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Same weapons, new light cap. We've talked about this. I just kind of wanted to, throw this in here again. Even the new weapons that we've released, there's no new archetypes. No new archetypes have been introduced to the game for a minute, except for swords, which have been a big hit. I think the Destiny community needs new stuff, mechanically new stuff, not just like oh, here's a high impact auto that can roll basically the same thing. But the fact that it can roll, obviously the new perks is obviously interesting.
Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah, those are neat. Those are neat. Not to say that those are bad, right? Obviously, there's a little bit of a hole for those weapons because those you don't see those anywhere. Just because they're kind of hard to get. Like the Halfton D is the only one I can think of off the top of my head that is a kinetic auto for high impact frames, and Redrix and the Einstein D are the only high impact kinetic pulse rifles, right? So there's a bit of a hole there, which is nice that they're kind of reintroducing the archetype to us. Not that it's new, but I mean, we talked about this. We already kind of mentioned this. So I mean, the new perks are nice. I would like to see more, but I don't know. Do you guys have any opinions on anything like that I've mentioned?
No,
No?
I'm just in agreement. Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with what you said.
All right, Scape, same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just say that I like the idea of swords being or getting some buffs since I feel like it's one thing that's just been totally
And rocket launchers and scout rifles.
and yeah. Well, swords in particular, it's always been something that has been in somebody's mindset of being like, no, swords suck, never use swords, that's all.
Right. Yeah.
And
I think I see what you're
switches
saying.
the meta up a little bit.
Right.
Like,
The fact
especially
that
in
they're-
Crucible,
Mhm.
like in Crucible, like I always never expected to find somebody with a sword because nobody ever freaking used swords, and I love swords so much using those in PvP. But at that point, they just got. But at that point, weeb. I was playing Destiny before I became a weeb. Okay. And so now in Crucible, more people are using swords, and that is an extra layer of what I need to look out for.
Right. I think I see what you're saying. The fact that they're more viable right now essentially makes it seem like there's something new, right? I get that. I mean, they did do a pretty hefty rework to them, and I think a lot of other stuff could use that as well. But anyway, let's roll forward here, gentlemen. Let's talk about who's being listened to. So that's one thing that Bungie has always said. They've always said, we're listening. And all the twabs, the Reddit posts, etc. Who is Bungie listening to? I want to get your guys' opinion first.
Escape, you go.
Well, I doubt that they're still listening to an actively constructive player base. I feel like maybe a
Tread
reason
lightly
they
now.
don't. I feel like the reason why they may not be listening to just about everyone is because some people don't quite have a constructive opinion about the game, and they're just like, "Hey, you should do this. Hey, you should do that. That's cool." I feel like the people they can trust most to give them an honest opinion about game design are people that probably work with them already, or probably somebody from other like critiques, like, and not people that actively play the game, and some people that are more along the lines, perhaps playtesting it.
So you bring up an interesting point. Let me push this idea a little bit further. Let me ask you that. Who should Bungie be listening to? Because you kind of, it seems like you're implying that they should be listening to more internal stuff.
Definitely more popular members of the content creating community. People that have access to an audience that Bungie would otherwise not listen to, but people that have a constructive opinion, being people on the internet that already give opinions about Destiny that a lot of people listen to, and these people actively play the game enough to
Are they
know...
not listening to those folks? Haven't they had summits with them and so on and so
Yeah,
forth?
I would imagine they are. Yeah, that'd be crazy if they weren't.
Well, I've heard the content creators talk about it. I'm sure we all have, about times they've been invited. I've heard True Vanguard. I've heard Astacross. I've heard a few of these guys say that they've been invited to discussions with people at Bungie, and so I think they do that.
If that's the case, then I could just be wrong, but at the same time, I could also be right, because the topic is not only who are they listening to, and whose opinions do they actually take into account. Is they can be listening to these people, but probably don't quite do it.
Hearing them, but not listening to them, essentially.
Well,
listening to them, but not.
Bungie has to balance some things, right? Bungie has to balance. I mean, part of the reason Bungie makes us grind is Bungie can only create so much stuff. They have limitations. They only have so many people. They've only got so many resources, right? So they make us grind a little bit to try to get us to stay entertained longer, to delay some of the satisfaction. And that's like, I keep looking at my season pass and I keep seeing that pulse rifle. I'm like, damn, I want that pulse rifle. And it feels like it's taking forever, but in honesty, I would have been playing a week. I'm at level 30 something, like, I'll get it. And eventually, you know what? I'm going to be engaged for another week or another 2 weeks because of that. And I understand that they're trying to walk that balance. They can't give us a raid every 3 days. That's not feasible, and all I'm trying to say is there's only so much content they can produce, and they're trying to make the content last as long as they can. And, maybe they don't have the best formula, but I do think they're trying. I mean, I'll tell you what, maybe changes don't happen fast enough. Maybe sometimes they don't happen fast enough. But when I think from D1 to now, shit changes all the time. Shit changes all the time. The meta changes. There's been hand cannons, there's been auto rifles, there's been pulse rifles, there's been in both games. I remember when everybody was complaining about spectral blades because of the stupid Whiz Invest or whatever, and that thing lasted forever. And then it was the Striker Titan, and like some of these things are problems, but all I'm saying is that there's change. I think there is change. Sometimes things are a problem too long, but I think they're trying. They're not sitting back doing nothing. I feel like they're trying.
Okay, let me throw in here real quick, because I think you have good points, Cranky, but I think you're not quite addressing the question. I think we kind of got a little sidetracked there.
Okay.
I agree with you. I agree that change, let's look at Hardlight. Hardlight was a problem a little while ago.
Yeah.
And it got fixed, within a few weeks. It was nice. We actually got a really nice, fast patch. It was good. I think we need more of those. For example, let's say that they release, I don't know, Wither Horde, and it just, for whatever reason, is busted AF. Right? I think it's fine personally, but and let's just say it's very obviously a problem, right? It's very obviously a problem. Let's just say, okay, it's not right now. I just think a lot of people are using it, but anyway, let's just say that's the case. The fact that I would like them to go in and fix stuff, even if it's not the perfect fix, just throw something at it, right, to fix it. But anyway, back to the question itself. We talked about content creators as being a source. Let me throw this out here. I see Reddit, obviously people, the DMG and Cosmo, the community leaders, they're the people who are involved in things like the Reddit, right? And they're listening to the people who are on said Reddit. Now, grant you, there's 1.5 million people in the Reddit, but I think the people who are actively posting are the people who have the loudest opinions, right? Which I don't think, obviously, is not always the best, right? Obviously, they're smart enough that they're not going to do something stupid and listen to somebody who has a jackass idea, right? But it does kind of make it interesting. And one thing I do want to throw out there is that it's very clear that Bungie looks at use statistics more than anything else in terms of what should and should not be balanced and nerfed and so on and so forth. The fact that high impact pulses were probably the least used weapon in the game is a good evidence to that. right? So those are the two things I want to throw out there as propositions as to who they're listening to, and I don't necessarily think that that's the best idea. I think Scape is on the right track, in my opinion. The fact that Reddit is probably a good source of information for Bungie, and for better or for worse, and that's what I wanted to kind of bring up with you guys, and use statistics, like how people are using this, how often they're using it. Thoughts, opinions. Let's start with Scape.
Um,
On that, yes. Do you think that's? Do you think? Oh, let's start here. Do you think Reddit
explain
should be
it to
the
me again
place?
in a question.
Yeah.
Like,
What was that?
do I think Reddit should be the place where Bungie
Bungie listens to.
communicates?
Obviously, that's not the whole story, right? But it's clearly a part of it. Do you think Bungie should be listening to the Reddit? And if so, in what capacity?
Um, well, they shouldn't just listen to the Reddit, I think. I mean, if they look at numerous different things, I could just be biased towards YouTube because I'm
More
on
plugged in.
YouTube a lot more than Reddit. So that's why I feel like a lot of YouTube audiences who can, or, but I think like YouTubers who comment on certain stuff and just have plain old discussions is about the same as having Reddit posts, which
Right.
is why I say kind of both. I don't want to come out and say that YouTubers should be focused more on Reddit users. Don't misconstrue me. Like, I don't want to say that. YouTubers is just the thing that I came up with, but I think they can listen to multiple different platforms of content creation, not just like one thing like Reddit or something.
Yeah, that is
Because
an
there's
interesting point. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, you're good.
Uh,
I was on.
Okay, I was just gonna say that is an interesting point. I've never seen DMG reply to anybody on the YouTube comments. Obviously, that's not really the place for it's not focused on specifically one discussion,
Well,
but it's
well,
kind of
okay,
something to
not
throw in
you.
there.
If what you were saying was should Bungie reply to YouTube comments,
I'm not saying that's the case.
I
I'm
don't
just
agree with.
saying that's something I've noticed, right? Like we see replies to Reddit specifically, but other categories, other places, we don't really see a lot of commentary, right? Like I'm just using YouTube as an
Yeah.
example here, right? Cranky, any opinions on that?
No, no, I hear what you
Cranky,
guys
you're
are
so
saying.
unhelpful.
Does
Damn it,
Bungie
come
have a
on.
I
YouTube
don't
account?
have an opinion on everything.
Does
Supposed to
Bungie
say
have a
something
YouTube
like,
account?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm sure they do. But anyway,
That could be where some of their criticism could come from, but again, like I said, a lot of criticism that comes directly from the community is not quite constructive,
not
which is
helpful.
why
Yeah.
it's better for them to focus on the larger members of the communities who can bridge themselves to the community.
Okay, let's talk about something else here. Let's talk about Power Fantasy. Let's move on here. I asked Todd Slays. He's a community member, or a member, I should say, in our dream team. He's a very skilled PvP player, and he loves the game. And recently, he's been playing GTA because he just hasn't found that love of the game recently. I said, hey, we're going to do a Yeetcast on D2 getting old and light level grinding kind of sucking. You've been playing GTA, I think, because of these issues. Do you think you could write me a little post, talking in the Discord, about what's bothering you in the game right now, in case you might want to make it, in case you can't make our discussion live? And here's a response. I'll try to read this quickly here because we are running out of time. I think the start of the season for me at PvP main is always dry because there's literally nothing new except weapons. For example, how many dungeons have they created in new strikes and raids? We haven't gotten a new casual Crucible game mode. And I just essentially said facts. I said, yeah, Trials is new, but that's highly competitive and something you play. It's not something you play like a chill game. You play to win. Like what happened to Rift Ball back in D1, and also the bounties are just so mundane that it's just plain boring. Like
Barrel racing.
do this, kill that, boom, a little XP. Why is it so hard to make the Crucible more mainstream? Back in D1, people played to test out new weapons, have fun, and generally just have a good time. You don't need to be good to win games, I feel like, and there wasn't a certain weapon type that was just trumped everything. Auto rifles. And yeah, cough, cough.
Nothing wrong with auto
Anyway.
rifles.
Reading down here. He says anything that's good or top of its class gets nerfed, and then it becomes not fun or not advantageous to use. Mainly, I think that Destiny's main concern is that the fact that it's trying to remain balanced. Destiny, at its core, is power fantasy. Power fantasy. Destiny at its core is power fantasy. You are a super cool person with in a dope set of armor, and you shoot aliens all across space. That's awesome, and one of the reasons that I stay. But nowadays, it just feels like having power is a bad thing, and your enemies always need to be balanced. Like, give me Galahorn and let me blow shit up. Stop nitpicking and nerfing just because it was better than everything else. And he says in all caps, so make everything else better then. Stop making me feel bad for being powerful. Prime example, Izanagi's Burden, instant reload, all reload perks getting nerfed. None of those things were game breaking. None of those things were game breaking, and we're gonna let him get his opinion out here. None of these things needed to be touched, but they were because Bungie got bored and said that let's look at what people are using and why. You may be thinking, well, that doesn't sound like a bad thing. True, but Bungie loves to say, that's making the game easier and more enjoyable instead of making other perks worthwhile. Let's just nerf everything so everything sucks. And what you choose doesn't really matter or affect how the game plays out. And then I said, there's an old saying that goes, buffs are better than nerfs. And he says, exactly. It's a video game for the love of God. Please just let me feel like a badass and like an alien bounty hunter. Make me feel like, yeah, I can see why I've killed multiple gods single-handedly. And he talked about skill-based matchmaking for a bit, which we're not going to discuss too much here. But the gist is that he's essentially saying that it's always frustrating when you get something that's good and then it gets nerfed down. Not everything feels powerful like it used to. And this, I think, is specifically for PvE. PvP obviously has to be balanced, right? In order for the game to be enjoyable, you can't have something that's just clear and obviously the better thing than everything else, or else it gets annoying. Go see the current 600 auto rifle meta, even though I think this is a pretty good meta that we're in. But anyway, what do you guys think about that?
Well, first off, you did a magnificent play on words there.
What part?
You said that feeling powerful was the prime example. When you get engrams of powerful gear, what are they called?
Yeah, it's prime. So, all right, you jokester.
Weeb.
So,
Weeb, yeah.
Weeb? How does that make me a weeb?
We're joking. Just roll forward.
Okay, so yes, I agree that it's nice to feel powerful. It's nice to see something that's overpowered, and it's nice to use it. That's why there's such a thing called the meta. The thing with Destiny is that they're trying that the problem with Destiny is that they have a game that's really set on like, okay, here's a story, here's an MMO, but we're also making it PvP. If they had something that was just a PvP and something that was just a PvE, they can go about both those things in different ways.
So wait. What you're saying is that they should balance the sandbox between PvP and PvP differently so that it's more interesting for the people who are inside those communities.
I think that's what you're saying. I'm just saying the reason why the whole buff and nerf thing, like, I'm saying that if people want to feel powerful, then PvE is the way for them to feel that, whilst if they're doing a PvP event, then it's players against other players, so that's where things should probably be the most fair.
I see. Yeah, one of my biggest complaints right now in PvE is the fact that red bars are tanky. Like, I was playing the Prophecy Dungeon, it took like an entire magazine to kill with a high impact pulse to kill a freaking red bar, and I'm like, this is crazy. This is just like a normal red bar too. This is just like an acolyte. It's just like, it's so frustrating.
That's
because
not a light level problem?
No, it's not a light level problem. I was comfortably well lit on that situation. I was like 1042. Everything in there was 1040. Like, what? The fact that I have to be like ridiculously powerful in order to rip something's head off is frustrating to me. I don't know, like, if you're gonna do that, at least have the decency of putting a yellow bar on them so that I feel like they're supposed to be powerful. But the fact that this is supposed to be just like a trash tier mob, and it's like, this thing is kind of like giving me trouble. The fact that I can get 3-tapped by a yellow bar in those types of activities is a little frustrating too. I don't know, like, the things that frustrate me is the fact that it's intentionally lopsided in the enemy's favor. It doesn't feel good for me as that player to be in that situation. The fact that I have to run like highly meta stuff in order to make it work. Anyway, Cranky, any thoughts, opinions? I know you kind of want to get to kill and stuff.
I don't play PvE all that much. I haven't tried that new dungeon. I want to. I don't know. I mean, I was just thinking what Todd said about like Galahorn and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that was part of the fun. I don't know what it takes on their end to balance things. I guess I try to think about Bungie's perspective too. But if I'm just purely thinking about my perspective, yeah, it was fun to have some amazing weapons. I don't know. I don't feel like. I guess the complaint was that you had to use Black Hammer and what was the hand cannon out of the Vault of Glass? Fatebringer and Galahorn, and that was your loadout. But I don't know. I kind of felt really accomplished when I got those things, and I kind of liked using them. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird because you don't want things to be. It almost feels like everything is undertuned. You know what I mean? Like everything feels too weak from a Guardian's perspective, if that makes sense. Like yeah, the problem with everything being like there's certain things being too powerful is that you get like kind of a static thing, right? Let me ask you something. Do you think Bungie is prioritizing balance over fun? Because
Yes.
All right, Cranky.
No, that was Scape.
Yeah, I'm opening.
Do I think?
Yes.
Do I think that?
Well,
hold your horse, Escape.
I can elaborate after Crank explains.
We hoped you would. Do I think they're doing that? Probably, but I don't know that that's the wrong thing to do.
Interesting. Escape?
Well, I feel like when they're trying to, I've seen them nerf weapons to only be nerfed in certain areas. Like I know that they nerfed, like at one point Recluse's damage buff that it got, they nerfed it in PvE before like PvP and that kind of thing. But at the same time, when they do nerf these things for different game modes, then it's trying to blend between two different types of games that don't work, between a PvE MMO and then something like a competitive atmosphere where people want things to be completely balanced. And then so like you have the PvP side, they want everything to be fair and balanced, but then from the PvP, and then the PvE side is saying, well, if everything is like this, it's not as exciting.
Right.
So, like, if they had... Now, this is just speculation. I don't have any sort of means on how they would go about doing this, but if they had a way of making weapons work differently depending on which game mode you're doing, they can be fair and balanced in a PvP standpoint, but in PvE, there can be ways to where they can be a bit more unique than others.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that goes back to what I said about having a separate sandbox, because I agree. Like, the fun in Crucible is the fact that it's balanced. When it's balanced, it's fun, right? Because I can take anything I want and live out a specific power fantasy that I'm trying to achieve, and that's fun. But when you're going into PvE, you want to generally feel like a bit of a badass, unless you're explicitly not supposed to, right? You're going into a raid and it's supposed to be hard, right? Right?
Isn't a dungeon like a raid though? Like a 3-man raid, really, right?
Yeah, in a way. But I mean, that's not. It's not just limited to that. Anyway, but yeah, separate sandbox I think is what needs to happen here. But anyway, we've been going on here for a minute. Do you guys have any closing thoughts on anything here?
Nope.
Skate?
Not off the top of my head. I think that we've covered everything that we have.
Yeah, fleshed everything out here. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I know this was a little bit of a longer one. Hopefully it makes up for the fact that we missed this week's, the recording of this week. It'll be going up next week. Last week, I guess, is when you're hearing it. But hopefully that makes up for it.
Before we release the video, Bungie just does everything we want them to do, and now we're just like, well,
now we look like assholes. Yeah.
Now we look like assholes.
All right. Anywho, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe if you're not already, and like the video. It helps us a lot to understand what you guys are looking for. Drop in the comment section down below if you have any ideas on anything that we've talked about here. We'd love to get a discussion going with you. All right. Well, bless your faces and deuces.